Number 9. Frilled shark. Believe it or not, there are currently animals in the world today that are believed to have resided in the times of prehistoric creatures. One that is confirmed is the frilled shark, which is from the Cretaceous period and is thus known as the living fossil amongst many. An easy way to tell that the frilled shark doesn't come from our age is to look at its body composition. It doesn't have a large dorsal fin. Instead, it has numerous fins on the side and bottom of its body. Its skin also looks very rugged and worn, which many have likened to certain types of eels. In fact, the frilled shark has been compared to an eel a lot because of its length and movement capabilities, which is appropriate given that its body is only about 6.6 feet long at max. Not to mention that their elongated heads and necks don't match other sharks of the modern age. Another odd thing about the frilled shark is that they are rarely seen by humans. You'll need to go to 5,000 feet below sea level in certain parts of the ocean, like the Atlantic and Pacific, just to see one, though some reports have it close to the surface in other areas, such as in Suruga Bay, Japan, where it's said to be only 660 feet below sea level at max. Either way though, this fish is one of the rare few that are an observable window into the prehistoric world, which is why many want to study it. Number 8. Coelacanth. No fisherman ever expects to catch an extinct animal, especially 65 million years extinct. But for the coelacanth, that's what happened when it was rediscovered by a fisherman off the coast of Africa. This fish was created during the Cretaceous period, back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and by the time the modern age arrived, it was just assumed that the coelacanth was extinct, especially when fossils of the creature were found and no other fish in the water that we knew of looked like it. Then, in 1938, a marine biologist found this long-dead fish while looking through a fisherman's hull. And not only was it a coelacanth, it looked exactly like the fossils that were found of its kind. The question now is, how did it stay hidden for so long? The answer might just be the simplest of all: space. There's a lot of places in the ocean, and the coelacanth is thought to live in somewhat deep waters, which makes it incredible that it was caught at all. Eventually, another species of coelacanth was found in Indonesia, further proving that the species is alive and well. Number 7. Goblin shark. The goblin shark, also known as the vampire shark, is one of the most interesting things you will find in places like the Mariana Trench. Why? Its age. Its species is said to have lived for millions of years. They're believed to be so old that, not unlike the frilled shark, they are referred to as living fossils. While most sharks are considered to be scary in one form or another, most agree that the goblin shark is terrifying. What's more, its scary reputation is earned because of its unique feature on it. That's because the elongated nose of the goblin shark is full of electromagnetic sensors. It can detect even the smallest discharge of electricity, such as in a prey's brain. Yet that's not what makes it so terrifying. When it does find food, it'll not only lock in on it, it extends its mouth from its body and chomps down on the foe, a feature that is not common with sharks or various other species on Earth. If you're familiar with the creature known as the xenomorph from the Alien franchise, you'll know what to expect from the goblin shark, and that makes it horrifying, while also making it a creature that you could very easily liken to an alien from another world. On average, the goblin vampire shark is said to be about 10 feet long, but because of their rarity and the fact that the adults tend to live in deeper waters that humanity can't reach easily, it's possible that the goblin sharks are much bigger than we realize. So with a large size, a scary mouth, and more, you can see why people are afraid of this shark. Number 6. Martialis Eureka ant. The Martialis Eureka ant is a bit of a curious one when it concerns species that have been alive for a very long time, mainly because it wasn't discovered until the year 2008. That's right, it was barely found over a decade ago, and yet it's one of the oldest species of bug out there in the world today. In fact, if you were to compare the respective ages of all the insects of the world in terms of when their species arrived, the Martialis Eureka ant would be the oldest. Martialis Eureka ant represented not just a new species of ant, but also a whole new genus and subfamily, a primitive prehistoric one that existed at the very beginning of ant evolution 120 million years ago. That's one of the ironies about the animal life. They could be here from times long ago past, but if we don't find them and study them, we'll never know. It's the same thing in regards to wondering how long animals live. Unless we can keep them alive long enough, we'll never know their upper limit. So at that end, there could be other bug species out there that also come from millions of years ago and are still around today. Number 5. Tadpole shrimp. Today, the tadpole shrimp are in a bit of a precarious situation. Mainly, they are listed as an endangered species, which means they are in danger of becoming extinct. The irony of this is that should they fall, they would have fallen after living over 220 million years on Earth, as they've been around since the Triassic period of history. However, there is hope for the species, mainly in that scientists discovered it in 2010 that the species has a very unique trait when it comes to their reproduction. Mainly, they're able to lay eggs and have them lie dormant, even in dry conditions. Then, when they are hydrated again, they can still hatch, thus continuing the species. Now that we know how this curious creature survives, we have realized that there's a good chance there are more populations out there, said Dr. Larry Griffin from the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust. Thanks to that revelation, the species has been able to bounce back, but it will still need to grow big in numbers in order to ensure that it doesn't slide back down to endangered once more. Number 4. Sturgeon. Technically speaking, when you talk about sturgeons, you're not talking about a singular fish, but something much more. Sturgeon is the common name for the 27 species of fish belonging to the Acipensuridae family. Their evolution dates back to the Triassic period, some 245 to 208 million years ago. Over the course of time, some of those species are believed to have gone extinct, but the species as a whole continues to grow even with fisheries going after them. Another key aspect of them is that unlike many other fish in the oceans, the sturgeons are not known to have evolved that much over time. Both sturgeons and paddlefish have been referred to as primitive fishes because their morphological characteristics have remained relatively unchanged since the earliest fossil record. This is curious as most fish need to adapt in order to survive predators, and yet the sturgeon does not. If you're curious as to why the sturgeon are hunted by humans, that would be because they have roe, or internal eggs, which are used to make caviar. Number 3. Lamprey. The species known as lamprey are ones that often get confused for various things, including incorrectly being labeled as lamprey eels by some despite not having connections with the species. There are about 38 known extant species of lampreys and 5 known extinct species. Parasitic carnivore species are the most well known and feed by boring into the flesh of other fish to suck their blood, but only 18 species of lampreys engage in this micropredatory lifestyle. The species has lived an exceptionally long time. Mainly, they have existed for about 360 million years, putting them as some of the oldest remaining creatures alive. Yet when it comes to their fossil record, it's honestly slim pickings, not because the species isn't numerous, but because the creature is made up of cartilage and not bone. Thus, fossilization is a lot harder than it is with others. The first fossil lampreys were originally found in early Carboniferous limestones, marine sediments in North America. None of the fossil lampreys found to date have been longer than 10 centimeters, and all the Paleozoic forms have been found in marine deposits. Number 2. Jellyfish. You might believe that certain creatures that have lived very long periods of times are ones that are some of the most complex in the world, and yet that's not true in the case of the jellyfish. While there are many different kinds of jellyfish all over the world, the species as a whole has existed for many hundreds of millions of years. At first, the oldest living one was said to have existed from the period of about 300 million years ago, but new discoveries are now pointing to a find that says they've been around for over 500 million years. This came from a new fossil record that revealed new details. The fossil record is full of circular-shaped blobs, some of which are jellyfish, said Pauline Cartwright, assistant professor of ecology and evolutionary biology and one of the article's authors. That's one of the reasons the fossils we describe are so interesting, because you can see a distinct bell shape, tentacles, muscle scars, and possibly even the gonads. That's a very impressive thing, not the least of which is because while jellyfish technically haven't evolved in regards to being more complex creatures, there is a wide variety of jellyfish in the world today, including some that are immortal, so it's stated, and some that are the deadliest creatures around. Should it be further proven that they were around in some of the earliest times of life on Earth, it would raise many interesting questions. Number 1. Sponge. Many people forget that things like coral and sponges are living creatures, mainly because when you look at them, you don't think that they're alive for one reason or another. However, in the case of the sponge, not only are they alive, but they are some of the oldest things around. This was proven back in 2014 when a 760 million-year-old rock was found and discovered to have a sponge fossil in it. One in 2009 had a 635 million sponge fossil inside of it, further proving how long these creatures have been around. Sponges, were the first to branch off the evolutionary tree from the common ancestor of all animals, making them the sister group of all other animals. So if you're looking for the oldest creatures on Earth, the sponges would be the place to look, even if they don't look the part. Number 9. Axolotl. Uniqueness comes in many forms in the world, yet sometimes it's a strange trait, and sometimes the creature itself is very special and almost defies explanation, such as the axolotl. The axolotl is a rare and strange creature in nature for many reasons. First, it's a type of mole salamander that can be found in Mexico. Second, its standard form developed because its larva failed to change during its natural metamorphosis, which turns it into a large salamander, yet one that keeps its aquatic features, complete with gills and more. Just from a look standpoint, the axolotl is unique. It looks like a creature a kid would make in a drawing, or something that would be found on another world in a sci-fi show. Another interesting fact, its eyes don't have eyelids, so thus they never close. Scientists study this creature because of its interesting ability to regenerate, which could lead to advances in medicine. But the creature is another that is endangered, so that research could be derailed if the species dies. In fact, in 2010, it was believed they were extinct, until a search for them in 2013 found some wild ones still alive. Now, concentrated efforts are being done to keep the axolotl alive. Number 8. Mocha Dick. If you're familiar with the tale of Moby Dick, then you know that the crux of the story was that of a ferocious white whale that Captain Ahab was bent on getting and killing no matter what. What many people don't realize or remember is that the infamous whale was actually inspired by a real white whale known as Mocha Dick. No, for real, this was a real albino whale, one of a few that exist, and there are some that still exist in the world today, such as Galán de Leche, who lives off the coast of Mexico. But as for Mocha Dick, this was a fierce whale that had no problem battling people on their ships. During the 19th century, the whale was so infamous that many whalers went after it in order to try and kill it. It's said that Mocha Dick survived over 100 encounters with the whalers before they finally brought it down. The irony of this whale was many-fold, not the least of which was that it's been recorded that Mocha Dick was never the aggressor in these fights. It would be very calm until they attacked it, and then the whale would go ramming into their boats. Also, it only died because it was attempting a rescue mission of a cow, one who was in the water because of its calf, who eventually got killed by the whalers. And when Mocha came to help, they got the whale too. Thankfully, today, most white whales are protected because they are so rare. Some even have fan clubs dedicated to them. Number 7. Stiletto snakes. When it comes to snakes, you know that there are a large variety of them, from ones on land, to ones in water, to ones that can glide through the air, and more. They are just as versatile when it comes to the bites that they have, and that makes them some of the most dangerous creatures on the planet. But with the stiletto snakes, it's another level of danger that no one really sees coming. You see, these snakes were found very recently in 2019 when they were discovered under a rock of all things in Guinea and Liberia. In an attempt to pick them up in the usual way, grasping behind the head with one's fingers, they discovered that these snakes had a very weird mutation from other snakes in its group. When you think of the fangs of a snake, you think of them being in the snake's mouth, right? You see the fangs and they're either straight or curved. But with the stiletto snakes, it's a different story, as these snakes have the ability to literally stab you with their venomous fangs, with their mouths closed. It's very much a side-stabbing action, and it's one that has taken many aback by how unique it is. Just as harrowing is that the stiletto snakes are willing to lunge good distances to get to or get away from prey, and their venom may not be fatal, but it's able to cause necrosis in certain limbs or appendages if you are stabbed with the fangs. Number 6. Melting fish. The depths of the ocean hold many secrets. Just as important though, the depths of the ocean hold many species of fish that will only truly be able to view when they are at a certain depth. Why is that? Because they literally cannot come to the surface of the water, and a great example of this type is the snailfish, that is now known as the melting fish. In 2018, a scientific expedition plunged 7.5 kilometers into the Atomica Trench. Located off the coast of Peru, it is one of the deepest places in the sea, and when they went down there, they saw many kinds of animals, one of which was the snailfish. 3 different kinds of snailfish, in fact. Upon observing the snailfish, it looked as though they were some of the top predators of the area because of their body size and shape. This confused a lot of scientists because the pressure of the depth they were at would crush humans instantly. Curious, they captured the snailfish and tried to bring them up to the surface. This proved disastrous, as not only did the fish die, they almost literally melted before the scientists' eyes. The reason for this was simple. Over the course of time, the snailfish adapted its body so that it could survive at the depths it was at. Its body was literally being held together by the ocean's pressure. So when it was brought up to the surface pressure, there wasn't enough to keep its body in its shape, and thus, it melted. This isn't the first case of this happening either, with a creature captured from the depths, as the blobfish was a creature that was taken from the deep ocean, brought to the surface, and its form changed dramatically. Number 5. Zoids/giant pyrosome. The giant pyrosome is known as the unicorn of the sea, because while it's known to exist, there have not been many who have gotten close to see it, let alone take photos and videos. Yet that's exactly what happened off the coast of Tanzania in August 2013. To those who don't know what pyrosomes are, they are a free-floating colonial tunicates that usually live in the upper layers of the open oceans in warm seas, although some have been found at greater depths. Pyrosomes are cylindrical or cone-shaped colonies up to 60 feet or 18 meters long, made up of hundreds to thousands of individuals known as zooids. You must be thinking, but if they're all individuals, how can they form a singular body like this? That's because every individual is wrapped up together in a gelatinous tunic, and it is that which divers see if they are lucky enough to encounter the creature, which is another reason it's known as the unicorn of the sea, because it's very much unlike anything that is out there, given its gelatinous form and how it moves. Zooids come in many shapes and forms, including forming together on land to become blobs that can be found in places like the Mississippi River and the British Columbia. According to some, zooids have been around for 470 million years, and it's clear by these two cases that they have evolved to survive in all sorts of terrain and situations. Number 4. Giant Isopod. The giant isopod is a creature that is similar in design to things like woodlouse. The difference between them, though, is size. The giant isopod can be on average 18 inches long, if not bigger. The biggest one ever found was 2.5 feet. If you don't want to see these isopods outside of your home, you're in luck, for you can only find them on the ocean floor. In fact, they've been documented to live in every single ocean in the world. One of only a select set of ocean animals can do such things. It's not an aggressive animal at all, but it is something that is abnormal and large, and when tempted, they have the numbers and strength to actually get into and eat an entire alligator. Number 3. Blue lobster. If you were to picture a lobster right now, be it you've seen one in an aquarium or one you've eaten recently, you no doubt would say that the coloring of said lobster was either brown or red. These colors are natural for most lobsters, as brown is their natural color, while red is what happens when you boil them for eating. However, a rarity that still hasn't been fully explained is the case of the blue lobster. While rare, they are not unheard of, and blue lobsters tend to show up every few years or so, baffling fishermen and others who see them because it's a typical color of them. Though again, not unheard of, because when it comes to lobsters, their colors are defined by their surroundings, what they eat, and their internal chemistry. A pigment called astaxanthin changes colors depending on its amount, outside influences, or how astaxanthin contorts. One such blue lobster was found in 2017 by a fisherman, and after the shock wore off, he took it to the local science center for study. There are certain European kinds of crab, though, that are known for having a dull blue hue, but very bright blue ones are very rare. Number 2. Wallace Bee. Bees are creatures that many people wish to avoid at all costs, especially when a hive is disturbed, and the bigger the bee, the more that people want to flee from them. So when Alfred Russel Wallace found a massive bee 4 times the size of a honeybee back in 1858, it was quite the discovery, until it vanished. Then, in 1981, another entomologist came about and found 6 nests of what was now called the Wallace Bee on the Bankin Islands. But again, the creatures vanished. Fast forward to 2019 and yet another bunch of them was found, but this time it was found on North Maluku. And not only were they found, but a queen bee was found. Pictures were taken of the queen, and it was revealed that she had wings that were 2.5 inches long, and it had massive mandibles. As for why they keep disappearing, that's up for debate, but many think it's because the areas they live in are remote, and thus they can vanish without people knowing where they went. Number 1. Rainbow squirrels. To some, squirrels are annoying creatures. To others, they are ones to be fed and appreciated. And then there is the rainbow squirrel. Yes, a squirrel that has so many colors on it, it looks like a rainbow. When it was first photographed by an amateur photographer, many wondered if the creature was honestly real. but it is indeed real, and it's known as the Indian giant squirrel. What makes this particular capturing of the squirrel so unique is that these squirrels rarely leave their trees. Rather, they'll bound from one tree to another, including leaping 20 feet into the air to do so. What's more, while this one had a rainbow coating, not all of them have them. Some just have shades of brown. Many think the color palette is for camouflage. What's more, while this one had a rainbow coating, they are also very long squirrels. When you include the body and the tail, they can be up to 3 feet in length. Number 10. Dung beetle, super strength. The term super strength can mean many different things. Speaking in terms of the dung beetle, it revolves around how much they can push around via their legs. The dung beetle is actually the strongest animal in the world because of how much weight it can move in proportion to its own body weight, of which it doesn't weigh much, for it is only about half an inch long and its average weight is about 0.75 ounces. If you wish to know how this was proven, an Onthophagus taurus dung beetle was put into an experiment by some scientists in London. They were aiming to test just how much strength the dung beetle had. By the end of the test, they realized that this dung beetle could move an object 1,141 times their own body weight. Allow me to spell that out. That would compare to a human. If an average human could do that, they would be able to pull 6 double-decker buses without much effort. If this kind of proportional strength sounds familiar, it's because you've likely heard about how another insect species, the ant, is able to do somewhat similar feats, but on a smaller scale to the dung beetle. All of this proves just how strong the dung beetle really is, even if it doesn't look like a creature with such strength. Number 9. Immortal Jellyfish. In the animal kingdom, there is a jellyfish that apparently has immortality. The scientific name for this jellyfish is Turritopsis dohrnii, and it has a very unique ability that allows it to be immortal. Mainly, it doesn't become mature. How this happens is thus. The immortal jellyfish, which is an appropriate nickname, will age until it's an adult. Then it'll go and mate with another jellyfish, and after it does, it actually reverts back to its younger form, or its juvenile form. After it goes back into this state, it'll start aging again until it goes and mates, and then it'll start all over again. Due to this repeating process, they are immortal. To be clear, immortality is defined by not dying. However, there are many catches to this. In the case of this jellyfish, it can still die by being eaten. In terms of aging, it cannot die by that path. In the recorded history of the world, this is the first and currently only creature to have this particular superpower. Many scientists are observing the immortal jellyfish to learn more about this ability, no doubt to see if it could be replicated in some form to help the human race. Number 8. Spiders' web strength. In Marvel Comics, Peter Parker has the ability to shoot spider webs out of his hands that allow him to swing from building to building. Some might think this is a gross exaggeration of how strong spider webs are, but they would be wrong, for it is a true superpower that they have. Granted, some spiders do swing like Spider-Man, but their true strength lies in their webs and how insanely strong they are. Standard spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel. What's more, there are some spider silks that are even stronger than that. It just depends on the species of spider, such as the Darwin's bark spider. This spider's web has a strength that's 25 times stronger than steel and can be woven into an item that is 10 times more durable than Kelver. There is actually a very real movement in the world right now to find a way to manufacture natural spider silk at a quicker rate and without hurting or killing the spiders, because this material could be used to not just make Kevlar, but also incredible strong bandages and sutures for surgery. Why would they use them for that? Because another superpower that the webbing has is it's immune to bacteria and disease, and it's waterproof. Number 7. Horor Frog, bone claws, and regeneration. There is a frog out there in the world called the Horor Frog. It's also known as the hairy frog, and it's called this because of its unique offensive ability, one that allows it to have claws, which is not something associated with frogs. This superpower occurs because the frog actually mutilates itself on a regular basis by breaking the bones in its hands and feet in order to get the bones to protrude through its skin, giving it claws that are liked to cats. Such mutilation isn't unheard of in the animal kingdom, but for frogs, it's somewhat unique. But Just like a superpower, the frog can retract the claws it made for itself, thus hiding its weapons from prey and predators alike. Though how this is done, or even possible, is unknown at present. These frogs are apparently so feared that where they are found in Cameroon, the locals will hunt them with spears to make sure they are in range of their claws. This particular frog is a lot like Wolverine, who has similar bone claws in his hands, which is an appropriate analogy because some scientists theorize that the horror frog actually has a simple form of healing. Being amphibians, it would not be surprising if some parts of the wound heal and the tissue is regenerated, said one scientist. If this is true, then the horror frog would actually have 2 superpowers within its body. Number 6. Cockroaches, radiation resistant. A common myth that has resounded through pop culture is that if a nuclear bomb were to go off, the only thing that would survive is a cockroach. But is it true that they are immune to radiation from nuclear bombs? No. But they are incredibly resilient to them. This was proven in many ways, not the least and most popular of which was during a test of the show Mythbusters. The trio of Grant, Carrie, and Tori went and exposed a group of cockroaches to radiation that would kill any human, and though not all of the cockroaches lived, many did survive. But why do cockroaches survive when others die? It's believed that it's because of their cell structure and how their bodies are formed. When a human body is hit by radiation, the body is affected in the soft tissue areas as well as other places like bone marrow, which makes our body break down by cell destruction. Cockroaches don't have that limitation, as their own cells are actually rather simple, and so their bodies are either not affected or affected at a much slower rate. Ironically though, the Mythbusters also tested other bugs like fruit flies, and they were found to be even more resistant to radiation than the cockroaches. So there are many insects that share this very special superpower. Number 5. Super speed. There are many fast animals in the world, including many like cheetahs that can keep up with cars, but in the terms of super speed, there's only one true contender, the peregrine falcon. This is a bird that has been clocked at a blistering 242 miles per hour, 4 times the average speed limit on the highway. To be specific though, this isn't a normal flying speed for the bird, or the horizontal speed of the bird as it's called. That's actually around 70 miles per hour, which is still fast. But where it obtains its super speed is in its ability to dive down and grab prey in the blink of an eye. This is all due to its body, which is quite literally designed to be the fastest thing alive. What the peregrine falcon will do is it'll tuck in its wings, still its head and feet, and just start building up speed at an impressive rate. And because it's going down at an angle and not straight down, it doesn't have to abide by the laws of terminal velocity. Though endangered, the peregrine falcon is one of the most feared birds in the sky, mainly because of its speed. Number 4. Fishing spider. Walking on water. The concept of walking on water is not new to animals, but for spiders, it's usually their key weakness, except for species like the fishing spider. It's known by other names too, like the dock spider, wharf spider, raft spider, but their superpowers is the same. Their hair is unwettable, which allows them to well and truly walk across the water. And sometimes they can even go underwater and climb up rocks while submerged because the water doesn't affect them like other animals and insects. The real use of this superpower, though, comes when it's hunting, for it doesn't go after insects, but rather it goes after fish of an impressive size at times. It'll walk across the surface of the water and then use its legs to breach the surface and lure the fish to them, as fish can often be attracted by stimuli like sounds or disrupted water. Once in range, the leg will actually grab onto the fish, as the top of the leg is actually a claw, and then throw it onto the land where it is helpless and the spider can then eat it. And because of its immunity to water and the way its body is built, it can stay submerged for 45 minutes without drowning. Number 3. Pit viper heat detection. Snakes are already known for their very refined senses, such as detecting scents with their tongues, but in the case of the pit viper and a few other snakes like certain pythons and boas, they can go beyond that. Their skin and nerves are so refined that they're actually able to detect the very heat given off by an animal. To put this in context, think about it like how when you are cold and you touch someone who is warm, you feel the heat. Now imagine being able to sense that heat even though the person is several feet away from you. That's what the pit viper and other snakes can do. This occurs by pit organs on the snake's face. These pits actually let the snake detect thermal radiation. The organ then sends the information to the nerves in the brain, and thus the snake can touch the heat of other animals, guiding them to either prey or away from foes. Humans apparently have a somewhat similar nerve receptor, but it's not as refined. Number 2. Dogs' precognition. The ability to see the future is something that has been debated widely among humans, because many humans have claimed to have this ability. Apparently, so do dogs, and this too is highly debated. Dogs have been recorded by many to sense danger approaching. Many have attributed this to their heightened sense of hearing and smell, and yet there are times when no such indicators have been detectable, and yet the dog would sense danger. An example was unintentionally shown during an episode of Mythbusters. Host Jamie Hyneman had a dog named Zero, who detected danger in a small-scale experiment and made sure it wasn't in the area when it indeed did go wrong. Another form of precognition dogs are said to have this when they can detect when an owner is going to come home. Again, without clues like sight, sound, or smell. There was even a study done to show that they could indeed predict when the owner was coming home. Number 1. Sound mimicry. In the wild, there is a creature called the lyrebird, and it has the very rare and very superpower of being able to mimic the sound of just about anything it hears. This is because of a very simple reason. You see, the lyrebird has a very complex set of vocal cords, not unlike how a human voice actor can change their pitch and range for a character portrayal. The lyrebird can do that to another level. They've been known to mimic the sounds of chainsaws, car engines, barking dogs, and human voices. They can also likely mimic the sounds of other animals that are within their habitat. Ironically, the lyrebird will actually use amalgamation of these sounds as a mating call to other lyrebirds. If you wish to go and test out its skills for yourself, you can find these 2 species of lyrebird in Australia. However, the lyrebird is actually a rather shy creature, so it may take you a while to find one. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these animals with superpowers? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time. Bye!